So the question I was going to ask is, when you had this idea that, hey, I can start this brand, was it subconscious? Or you were consciously thinking about, hey, this seems easy. I can probably start a brand.
I feel like it was a few steps before I decided it was going to be a brand. I think it was kind of, look, this sweater, I remember it was a crew neck sweater I received, and I was kind of like, well, there are certain part, and obviously with alterations you can only do so much. You can't add fabric. So um I kind of thought to myself, well, what if I could make one, one better? Um but before going, I guess from there it was kind of like, well, then, if I can make one better, then could I sell it? But ultimately it would be essentially just trying to make my own wardrobe, and whatever excess I do have I can pretty much sell.
Why were you the only one out of your friend group who wanted to make their own wardrobes, essentially?
It's a good question. So I was the only one who wanted to make my own wardrobe. However, I think for me, that was my intention. Whereas me speaking to my friends, it was kind of more like a business aspect of it. Um, and so we kind of didn't necessarily align because, yeah, what I was looking for and what they were kind of looking for was a little bit different. I was more of I kind of more had more of a passion towards the product itself, whereas I feel like Carlo probably had maybe a 50-50, and then Matt was probably more on the business side of things. Like he kind of just, it's like, yeah, clothes are cool, but like at the end of the day, you kind of need to make money. And so it kind of balanced things out a little bit more, because I'm full throttle, just kind of, by all means, I need to get it to look like this. I need it to feel like this. I need the fabric to be this heavy. I need to use this, like this type of fabric, etc., etc.
Are you still like that? Or you have evolved a bit in terms of a business mindset?
That's a great question. I want to say that I have. I think there's definitely been a lot of improvement to kind of realize you can't go through 20 samples before before deciding on a final product. So I've limited myself to say, all right, well, let's before we go into the next sample, let's 100% guarantee this is exactly what you want, before going through that process. Because yeah, fabric is not cheap, samples are not cheap. So you kind of want to make sure that you're like, prior to, the way I do things now, it's a case I used to kind of think to myself, well, how will it look if I add this, dimension, or how would it look if I, maybe add a couple centimeters here? Um, Whereas now I'll think about it, I'm like, will it make a big difference? You know, to myself and to the audience. Is it, by all means worth it? And so I've kind of scaled back a bit and looked at it from a figures perspective rather than a satisfaction perspective. So I mean, at the end of the day, I'll I'll know whether I like it or not, and I'll make another sample if I'm not 100% happy. However, I still have the idea of, the cost of it, on the back of my head before I make that decision to go through another sample.
So you would say an actionable step a creative who is a designer can take is looking at the cost.
100. I think it's a really important thing because I've spent a lot of money that was, I guess, unnecessary. You kind of need to be as pragmatic as possible. And so when I would need Matt or Carlo to kind of, well, mostly Matt, because he's very much a figure person, to really kind of, say, look, we can't go through more samples than we already have. Like, just make a decision. Is it this or is it that? And so then, yeah, I would, I guess make that final call and refrain from going back to, and because my pattern maker, I mean, we drive her hell as well. Like she's like so annoyed when we come back and say, you know what? It's really when I would come back and say, I actually liked it the way it was before, so let's take a step back. And she's just like, well, you know what? You're paying me by the hour anyway, so it is what it is.
See, see, this conversation is about you, but man, oh man, I can relate to this. Someone who has been
Mm-hmm.
looking for a factory for about 2 years now. Pardon me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I've been looking for a factory for about 2 years. I think I finally have one. And I've spent thousands in samples. And the worst part is, like, at least me, I feel fucking terrible because you feel like you cannot make a decision, man.
Mm.
You have this pattern, they make this pattern, you spend all this money, and then at least I'm like, oh shit, yeah, I like the old one, or maybe I can improve it this way. And then you find
Mm.
yourself just not moving forward. It almost hinders my
Yeah.
ability. That's why I hate perfectionism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. So I would I hate the fact that I have to have things, in a particular way. I really do. Um, However, I think that's kind of what makes me me. And like at the end of the day, I want it to be exactly how I envisioned it, and not cutting corners. Because look, if at the end of the day I create a product and I'm 100% happy with that product, at least I can wear it. And I know that, and this is a testament to kind of my customers. I'd get the same comments. It's like, yo, I really see the detail in this, and you get some people who I'd meet for the first time. They remember recently, one of the guys I'd met at a pop up that we did, who said we had a conversation. I remember mentioning to him that I paid $300 for this particular shirt, and um, I was 100%, satisfied with the quality of it, and that was essentially why I paid that much. And he was shocked and confused, and he reached out and just said, "Look, um, I thought you were insane when you mentioned that to me, but now you see me paying $150 for a hoodie, which." To him, because he's not so used to spending that kind of money on clothing, is quite big,
Yeah.
and he sees the value in it, and that brought tears to my eyes, because obviously he's kind of seeing my perspective as well, and that's ultimately what I'm looking for. I mean, I know that there will be people who kind of have a um, similar way of looking at garments to me, and so that's really who I'm making these products for.
Okay. And obviously now those like buying clothing can kind of be a business expense as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, fear of failure motivates you to work hard. How did you overcome
Mm-hmm.
the fear of failure and take more risks in life?
It's a great question. Honestly, it's just a case of being a little bit arrogant, in a sense, but also taking the chance to really believe in yourself. As cliche as that might sound, I just know that if I don't at least give it a go, I'm going to regret it, and I'm always going to have that idea of what if I did give it a shot, what if I did try, um, then at least I would know. And so,
Okay.
do I when I say
Mm,
failure, um, I mean give up. I don't necessarily mean the results weren't exactly how you wanted it, because I've been failing consistently throughout, the first day I started, where my expectations and the result were two different things. And so I've constantly failed. But what's motivated me is yeah, to fail in my eyes of giving up and deciding, that's it. I I failed and it's time to move on. Um, that's what I would say would be my biggest motivator, knowing that, unless, I mean, one day I might, and I don't think it will happen, but, putting in 110% and seeing no results. But ultimately, for me to fail is to really just give up on your dreams and give up on what you aspire to complete or do.
Is that why you're always striving for perfectionism?
I would say so, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's my reputation on the line, and so um, I wanted to make sure that I can do the best that I could possibly do, and I'm constantly learning. It's after every release I realized that I didn't have this, key bit of information, and I can kind of track it every single time what it was that I didn't have prior, um, and so it's a massive learning curve.
But with perfectionism, don't you think you're chasing something that doesn't exist,
100%.
right? Because my relationship with perfectionism is, like I said, it hinders my ability to actually even start. So, how often do you find yourself not being able to start or finish something because you're chasing something that doesn't exist?
Quite consistently. And it's a big reason why it takes me so long to actually create or finalize a project. It's only when you know you really put a deadline, and even then, you're making certain sacrifices in order to achieve that deadline. So, do I think I've ever truly reached that perfection? No. I feel like there's every single time I've released something, there's always so many things that I wish I could have changed, or I was unhappy, and it just didn't go the way I needed it to. But nevertheless, I I knew that it had to go out, and I knew that this was the best that could be done at this time. Later on, I realized that fabric wasn't correct. Like if I'd, gone about it in this way, then it could have been changed. And you constantly want to, I always think about, going back in time and fixing that, but it's just not the way things work. And so therefore you kind of got to move on and learn from those mistakes and build on that for the next release. But from
What are
a
some of the
starting,
ways?
sorry, go ahead.
Go on. No, no,
For,
but from the
sorry,
starting.
yeah, sorry. From the starting perspective, I'd say that's probably the hardest thing, to really put it from an idea to a reality, and constantly being annoyed because it's almost drifting from your grasp, and trying to get, like, align it back is absolutely the most tedious and painful thing possible.
But nothing beats the feeling of making something like which is tangible. First, it's intangible in your head, and then you actually see something close to it. Maybe it's not perfect, but it's close to being
Mm.
perfect in reality, and you can hold it. I bet nothing can beat that feeling.
100%. Yeah, I 1000% agree with that. It's a euphoric feeling. Finally being able to achieve that and look at your product and sorry, your garment, and finally be able to put that towards your wardrobe because it was something that you'd been, missing for quite some time, and you were able to finally achieve that. I personally will abuse it to the to the point where I can't look at it anymore. But that's just me.
What do you have to someone who is a little, like, for example, Matt, right? You said Matt
Hmm.
is one of your business partners, and he looks at numbers a lot. He's a numbers guy, right? And he's like,
Hmm.
hey, we could make Solace huge. It could be one of the biggest brands out of Australia in the next 2 years. All we have to do is do consistent drops and do more content marketing, right? What do you tell him? Like, yeah, what is something you tell him? Because I'm sure he's also thinking long term.
Hmm. For me, it's kind of a case of 100% agree with that. That there's no fault in what you've just said. Um, but that idea and reality are two different things. In order to, I guess, achieve that, you'd essentially have to make sure that you can get your garments done in a timely manner, which can be difficult because um, you know our garments are cut and sewn here in Perth, and so it's not. It doesn't get made as quickly as somebody who gets it done in a factory. It takes quite a lot of time. Um, we do also, because I live in Perth, Western Australia. We don't have a dye house, so we do have to ship it out to Victoria in order to get that dyed, enzyme washed, and pretty much treated to exactly how we'd want it to be, and then sent back here. So there's a lot of logistics to it that can be difficult. But to respond to what you've just said, it's I 100% agree. We should definitely do that, and we should definitely strive to do that. And that's essentially what we've been working on at this point, because looking back at our previous releases, it wasn't something that we'd consistently done, and would probably be one of our weakest points. So we kind of try to implement strategies in order to enforce that.
You know, something you said, um, that one thing, when I was speaking from a figures perspective or numbers perspective, right off the bat, you said that's just an idea, but that's not the reality. You're speaking with someone who used to have a brand,
Mm-hmm.
and I wouldn't, in my eyes, it was a failure. I learned tremendously. I think the person I am today is because of that brand, and I'm rebranding it. And I catch myself thinking every day, if I can come to a point where I'm doing monthly drops and I'm posting on TikTok and I'm posting on Instagram Reels, I can I can be the next, whoever, whatever brand, or
Mm-hmm.
I can achieve my dream of being a full-time creative. But what you just said about, having that's just an idea. That's not the reality. That made me
Mm-hmm.
think, what do you what do you have to tell me who thinks, just doing those monthly drops and posting consistently, you can most definitely make some money and, be a full-time creative? Because I'm sure a lot of creatives think that way, and
Mm-hmm.
they're striving to get to that point.
Well, I'd probably ask a few questions. Ultimately, what is it that you want? Is it to for your brand to be big? Is it longevity? Is it, you know, um, sales? Are you trying to make a lot of money? You kind of want to figure out what it is that you're looking for, because at the end of the day, if you want the brand to grow and be quite a big brand, I mean, I don't have all the answers for that because I don't have a big brand, and it would
Yet.
probably require a lot of it would probably require a lot of consistent, you know, learning from your mistakes and figuring out which way is the best alternative, or which strategy kind of works best for you. But I'd probably say marketing is your key thing. Like that's where all your money should be in. And obviously you still want a good product, but on TikTok, a lot of these people are purchasing it based off what it looks like more so than what it really is. It's not until they actually have that product in hand and can make that judgment call prior to that. Because look, a lot of brands who they might say that it's a high quality product, and they're using blanks from so on and so forth. I'm not sure where people were getting their blanks from nowadays. It will essentially be the same quality as the person right next to them who is doing a similar product with the same blanks. So the difference between the two is how they market it, but it's essentially the same product with a different screen print. And so I would say, yeah, put all of your money into marketing, and how to really capture somebody's eyes, would probably be my
But I don't
suggestion.
want to put you on this. But I don't want to put you on the spot. But that's something you are not doing. You're heavily focused on the product and not the
100%.
marketing itself.
100%. And I completely agree because like I mentioned, I'm a product person. I need to make sure the product is as amazing as possible. And from a business perspective, I'm learning that it's probably not the best way to go about it. You got to kind of even it out as best as possible. It's just a bit difficult for me. So I am, constantly trying to learn as much as I can how to market. But ultimately, like I mentioned, my money, my time, efforts will be predominantly in trying to make that product as best as possible. I'm only just now really starting to consistently post, try to make sure I at least get some form of story, with a plan of how I want to issue this storytelling, or get this product in people's views on a consistent basis. But I'm slowly kind of building that up. From a product perspective, though, I'm that's essentially what I do from morning till when I get back from work or on my weekends.
What are
And my
okay?
sorry, just to clarify as
Go on.
well. When
Yeah.
I ask those questions of what is it, from an end goal perspective, like if I'd asked you, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't want my brand to grow as big, but I do want it to grow as organically as possible, based off the quality of the gums. Like I would probably say 75% of our sales are from returning customers.
Customers.
Customers, from analytics on Shopify. Somebody who does purchase from us initially will always purchase again at least once more. And that's probably just because of it kind of it. I guess, from my interpretation of it, was it exceeded their expectation, and they understood that the product is built to last. Number one, it's very versatile, and a lot of thought was put into it, prior to its manufacturing or before it's been, I guess, sent out. So quality is the key thing, that I want out of this brand more than anything. Everything else will kind of come second to that, because I know at least I can work on that marketing, but I do have a good following of customers who are repeat buyers based off, the integrity and quality of the garments that we do sell.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, here's the thing. I've been a big fan of your work, so us
Mhm.
having a conversation is quite valuable to me, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can. There's things we
For
can
sure.
obviously cut out, but this is a question for me. So I see, I studied marketing. You studied
Hmm.
HR. I know that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we both have business degrees. As a as someone who likes marketing, I'm consistently looking at TikTok, and all these brands are, the quality 300 GSM, 10.5 ounce. Um, they're copying other brands' size chart. You can clearly see they just copy another brand's size chart. Are you not scared that you putting so much work in, by by sourcing the yarn, arranging the yarn, getting that colorless fabric, right? Paying so much in, um, paying so much for samples just so you can get that quality product, and then there's people that will just steal the information.
Um, by all means, feel free. It's a free country. Um, you can take as much as you want. I mean, it's out there in the public. So if somebody was to, take any design that we do have or any, um, you know, if you want, you can take the way our garments essentially fit or whatever the case is, but it's going to take you a while before you're able to release that. So there is a first mover's advantage to that. And I know that a lot of people, from a marketing perspective, you'll hear a lot of people, a lot of brands might say, look, the garment is, you know, 500 GSM, 600 GSM, 1,000 GSM. I think I saw somebody that actually had 1,000 GSM. I was quite impressed. I'm not going to lie. And I
T-shirt.
know that nowadays, no, it was a hoodie. It was a hoodie or a sweater. I couldn't remember. Um,
There is
but
so I'm just gonna there's a brand called Humane Blanks. They do 1800
mhm.
GSM. I think it's just double lined hoodie, but that's crazy.
Yeah. I think it might be a double
1800
line.
GSM.
That's impressive. It's really interesting that brands are doing this, and it's pretty cool. Like honestly, like for the everyday person as a consumer, um, I think that's amazing. Because for those who really want that really thick, and honestly, when I was when I was getting my garments manufactured, like 650 was the most they would allow. I think when we were getting our garments sourced in Japan, I think the most they said that they would be able to do was 700. I think it was 740. And I'm going to be quite, upfront about this. They were charging, I think it was like 70. I think it was like 75 US dollars per meter.
Big
And
cash.
I was
Are you
just
kidding
like,
me?
I was like, man, and that's for a production cost. For sample cost, I think it was like 100 US or 100 euros. It was around that because for some reason the Japanese manufacturer we're dealing with was selling it at euro or US. Um, and I remember going to Matt and I was just like, yo, can we just try it out? It's like, you get lost. It's not going to happen. And so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I settled on the 650 GSM. And so when I see brands that would be doing 180 GSM, I'm like, man, where are you? I mean, I guess I don't know where they're getting their fabric from. I'm not sure, who is making it, but kudos to them. I guess, the manufacturers that they're dealing with are making it a lot thicker for a better price. But one thing that we like have to ensure is that Number one, it's sustainably produced, made, but also ethically. We need to see the I guess the circumstances as well as the environment that these people are working in before we can work with anybody. That work starts from the cotton farms
Beautiful.
um, in Queensland, to the manufacturing here in Perth. Like we're in there whilst it's being made to ensure that everything's done according to what we've discussed. I don't want to ever hear that somebody's being exploited just to make our products. Like it just doesn't make sense. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. And so that's a non-negotiable for me regarding those details. So like if that's not a concern of anybody's, and I guess it's really your decision to where you get your fabrics made, whatever the case is. And I'm not saying that anybody who does get their fabrics made that are 180,800 GSM means that that's the case. By all
Yeah,
means, they could be doing it ethically as well. I'm just, as far as I'm
ethically.
concerned, from what I've seen, I haven't been able to find anything that is ethically made of that high quality, because we have to make sure our cotton is also bare minimum has to be combed cotton, if not Pima cotton. So that's another hurdle that we have to get through, because that will essentially determine the longevity as well as the hand feel as well. Because when you do get any product that is 50% cotton, 50% polyester, you're going to get pilling. It's not going to last you as long, although it will feel amazing the first time you wear it. You chuck that in the wash and game over, it's done. And that was one thing that we've noticed when we were going through our initial sampling from the first garments that we were making. Polyester is something I never like to work with. I do not like to use carded yarn fabrics. I mean, carded yarn's not really that bad, but I prefer to bare minimum use combed cotton. And that's free advice for anybody that's listening. Try to look out for that, because that was something I
Yeah,
learned down
100%.
the line, and it was after I found that out, I was kind of just like, oh man, I wish I'd known this a lot earlier. But those are a lot of the hula hoops that we go through to make sure that the product is as best as possible, or as high quality as possible, because we're trying to really compete. I mean, I wouldn't want to put myself in a competition with anybody, but in regards to quality, to the standards of, fear of God, I guess Louis Vuitton, and any of the really higher end brands, because we don't want a
Yeah,
customer to ever come to us and say, hey, that the quality of your products are really not good, especially for the price that you're charging for. It, I've worn it for like a year and it's fraying, or it's got holes in it, or I can't wear it anymore. I've got to chuck it out, because we want our garments to be built to last. We don't want you to ever have to throw it out and take it to salvos or to the thrift, because you don't, the value of it is just not there anymore. And that's why we don't put any branding. That's why we make it so that you'd be able to wear it all year round. Well, at least most of the products, hoodies, you definitely won't be able to in Australia, because it's too thick. But yeah, that's kind of, yeah. And another thing is, the weight of a garment doesn't determine the quality. I know it's a misconception, and it was something that I always kind of looked at as well. I always thought, man, that's, 550 GSM, it must be the best quality product of all time. You can, like Kanye's demonstrated, you can double layer a hoodie and it will essentially be as thick as a single layer hoodie at 600 GSM. And so I wouldn't say that the weight does not determine the quality of a garment. There's a lot of factors to put in place. And there's a lot of brands who are doing an absolutely amazing job right now. So yeah, just thought I'd
let's
put that
let's
out
kind
from
of
a misconception perspective. Sorry, but go ahead.
Misconception perspective. Yeah, no, for sure. So you did say you're obsessed with seeing new collections from your favorite designers, but you said it is
Mhm.
quite rare. So as a creative, why do you think it is rare for you to find great designers in the industry?
I wouldn't say that there's um, I wouldn't say that there's not great creatives or designers. I think from my personal taste, um, it's kind of difficult to get
Yeah,
that nail, hit on the head. Uh, but there will be cases where I've looked at a collection. I'm just like, man, that was a masterpiece. And then others, it's just kind of like there's a few pieces I really like, but overall, it's a good collection. It's just it's not for me. And so I wouldn't I would say it's pretty rare for me to kind of find a collection and think, man, I'm obsessed with it. Um, but there have been cases where that was the case. And so I get
let's
really
talk about that.
excited when I do. Yeah, go ahead. Do you want me to talk about collections that
Sorry.
I really liked?
Yeah, it is. It's a little delayed. I think it's a second delayed, so
Okay.
it's a little tough to get point across. But I am enjoying the conversation a lot. Just to let you know, I'm
Mhm.
learning so much.
For sure. Likewise. Um,
So
but yeah, so
yeah,
I'll tell you about the collections I do like.
right.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'd probably say either Fear of God's recent collection, not their runway that they've just done. The runway was pretty good. A lot of pieces probably do not appeal to me just because of you know um, my current wardrobe or my current rotation. I'd rarely wear like trench coats or like suiting of that sort. But their Eternal collection was really nice. I really, really liked it. Out of my price range, like I can't afford that, but it is extremely beautiful. I love the way he kind of you know, photographed it, told the story, did a good job. I think the last collection prior to that was probably fifth collection I really liked as well. That was a beautiful release. And so many of those garments were grails to this day that I don't currently have, but will still want. Once I see the prices drop a little bit lower on on Grailed or whatever the case is. But timeless pieces that I could still wear today and still think look amazing. Um, and it's a big thing that I'm kind of trying to instill in my own brand or business to be able to create a garment that you can wear 10 years from now and still think it really looks nice. Another collection would probably be Amy Leon Dore, 2020.
ALD.
I think it was autumn winter, um, which was beautiful. However, I remember I bought the ALD 550s, and I've had them for quite some time. This was the first release, the and white, red, and cream. Um, I remember I bought the shoes, loved them, wore them, and then I was so shocked that I just it, after wearing them, I just didn't was not a fan. It was such an odd thing, but nevertheless, like looking at the shoe on its own is gorgeous.
How do you did you so when, you know, whatever happened with 550, right away did you
Hmm.
think about how a customer should never feel the way you felt with 550s with Solace?
I mean, I don't think it's. within anybody's power per se from that particular shoe. I mean, that shoe looked amazing. I think for me, it might just be my foot. It could be just what I wear with it. It just didn't work. Um, so I don't think it was a product. I don't think it was. At the end of the day, I don't think it was a product. I think it was just me, to be honest. But one shoe, and I mean, I'm a pretty big shoe guy. Like I've worked at Foot Locker for a very long time. I've been collecting since 2012. But one shoe that I universally like love is probably and I featured it in Solace. The recent release was the Fear of God tennis sneaker. Like I abuse the living crap out of
Tennis
it. That
sneaker.
is like, yeah, it's probably my grail. I think actually I have a few grails on my list that I haven't been able to obtain, but that right there is just it's yeah amazing. That 1985 Chicago ones are probably two of the shoes I can keep in my collection and get rid of the rest.
Okay. What was so I mean we can kind of move on from there. Another question.
Sure.
As a designer, have you faced any challenges in finding inspiration or discovering new trends that align specifically with your vision?
Yeah, I would say that because um, I mean, any product that we do release, we want to make sure that it can stand the test of time. So I'll kind of look at something and think to myself, is this a phase? Is this a trend? Or is this something that somebody can, build their wardrobe around? And so I would constantly look at this. I mean, I on my phone keep a portfolio of a lot of things that I really like. Um, and I'll think to myself, is this something I could make for myself? And will it still be relevant in the next 5 to 10 years? Um, and a lot of the cases, it could be a no. It's a thing that I really, I really like for now, but in 10 years, people will probably think, man, that was a trend, and therefore, the value of it is significantly less than what it was when you first sold it. I kind of look at pieces as something that I can, and I have a lot of pieces in my collection, in like my wardrobe that have standed the test of time from different brands, and so I just want to make sure that I have anything that I do release will be similar in regards to I won't have to throw out after however many months or years because it's just taking up too much space and it's not going to be relevant um, throughout this season.
As a designer, what are some of those pieces so I can kind of learn as well and learn from those pieces?
So pieces that I have in my wardrobe that I would still keep.
Yeah, that have testament of time.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, they're relatively subtle garments, but I've got a few Luke Vicious pieces that I really like that I decided to keep because it doesn't make sense to get rid of them, and the quality is quite good as well. So there's no reason to leave that. I have a couple of Fear of God pieces that I wouldn't be able to get rid of. A few pair of shoes as well. They're was it their basketball sneaker that they released during the fifth collection. I've kept and I still wear them to this day because they're just a overall nice sneaker. Bomber jacket, satin bomber jacket as well that I haven't gotten rid of, just because you can wear that whatever season. A bomber jacket is timeless, in my opinion, and the way it fits is exactly what I've been looking for. Pair of Levi jeans. I've got a light wash and a dark wash. Well, a light wash and a washed, I guess. Those pieces will probably never leave my wardrobe. They're made and crafted as well, so they're a salvage denim, and they've
Sweet.
standed the test of
Yes,
time.
sir.
So, and I'd say that's pretty much it, to be honest. Obviously, I've got my
So,
solace pieces as well that I've kept in there that I'll probably never throw out. But there's a couple of colorways that I'm kind of not much of a fan of anymore.
okay. So, when I was doing research for this conversation, you
Hmm.
said your favorite designers or some of your favorite designers are Hader Ackerman, Jerry Lorenzo, of course, Pierre Moss, Teddy Santis, and Rick Owens. Can you
Hmm.
quickly say a sentence about each and why they mean much to you in your work?
For sure. Okay,
So we can
so
start with Hader.
Hader Ackerman. Okay, man, his bomber jackets. I'm pretty sure I was probably introduced to him after the whole Kanye thing. Same to most people, where he was wearing that the velour sweatsuit. But what really interests me is his bomber jackets. And I mean, there are a lot of pieces that he releases that I really respect, but probably just wouldn't work well with me. Um, but
Okay.
his bomber jackets are something that I've got a list of them just stored on my phone that are grails that I need to probably I will purchase. It's just a matter of getting it at the right price. Um, because they're ridiculously expensive. And I can understand why. Funnily enough, he actually
Right.
inspired me to um, when I was looking at his bomber jackets, it inspired me to use Ricani zippers. And so, and I've been working with Ricani ever since, because I personally believe that their zippers are probably a step above Riri, um, who we still use, but we've been using them more for our buttons more so than our zippers. So that's probably my comment on Hyder Ackerman. Fear of God, not much to be said, to be honest. is biggest inspiration, I'd
The
probably say.
goat.
More so his mainline than his essentials collections. I probably haven't looked at essentials since his first release as essentials from PacSun. Uh, but
Okay.
his garments are ridiculously amazing. His what can I really say, man? They're all very timeless. The quality is spectacular from the ones that I've purchased. And he's been able to essentially make everything from head to toe that looks stunning. So that's my comment on him.
100%.
Uh, Pierre Moss,
Pierre Moss.
Kirby is a massive
Yeah.
inspiration. Um, from his Reebok collaboration down to his mainline as well. Like his sneakers were wildly different, and something I really really liked as well. Sadly, I haven't been able to purchase them, unfortunately. But I do have a specific colorway that I do want to add to the collection. It might not work well with my I
Wardrobe.
guess current rotations, but I'm sure I could make something work. And his teas were beautiful as well. But I listened to a lot of his podcasts, and his stories insane. It's one I definitely recommend. I think it was Business of Hype is where he was the first one I listened to, and I've listened to it at least 4 or 5 times. And I feel like there's certain things, there's certain struggles that he went through that I can really relate to, in regards to factories and fabrics and things just not going the way as planned. So That's great. And then who else did I say? Rick Owens.
Buddy.
Do you want me to go? Okay, we'll go Teddy first. Teddy,
Sure.
he's got a very interesting style. I From an aesthetic perspective, I love Amy Leon Dore. Um, I just don't think the the garments would fit me the way I would want them to fit, unfortunately. But his
Okay.
design style is very influential, beautiful. When he released the 550s, like I remember when he was just releasing little glimpse, and I was obsessed. I remember I've screenshotted every photo, was obsessed with the look of it. Um, and overall, I just think he's a great designer, and um, his pieces look beautiful, and I know they will stand the test of time as well. And then lastly is Rick Owens. Now, Rick Owens, very wild style. um, I,
Yep.
I just love the way it's very cohesive. His it's one of those brands that really don't need an introduction. It doesn't. You could spot a Rick Owens garment from a mile away, similar to Fear of God. And although his pieces, I mean, there's a lot of pieces that I actually personally would still buy, even though they probably wouldn't work within my current style, or the silhouettes are a bit different to what I'm typically dealing with. But he's probably one of the first designers that kind of got me looking into fashion quite a lot. He's got a very unapologetic persona, and it's I feel like with Rick Owens, it's not just his garments, but his personality himself. The way he's very lighthearted, yet very serious,
Yeah.
is insane. And I wish I'd had the opportunity to check out one of his stores when I was in Paris, but unfortunately I didn't. Um, and so that's probably my, and his shoes are gorgeous as well. But that's probably my comments on
Are
each
you going to
individual
Paris this
designer.
year?
I'm not. Unfortunately, I'm planning on going to Japan at the end of the year. Um, but I really do want to revisit France.
Go to one of the fashion weeks, eh? That would be crazy.
I personally, if
Imagine the
when
inspiration.
I go to for to go back to France, I'd probably tailor around the Premier Vision, which is a fabrics fair and manufacturing fair. So for me, as much as I like Paris Fashion Week, I'd
Okay.
probably go for that more than I would for Paris Fashion Week, just because there's a lot more that I could probably gain from that. With Paris Fashion Week, you can easily, you obviously want to be, you know, in the atmosphere and whatnot, but a lot of the photos will be online. Whereas with Premier Vision, it's a really good opportunity to meet the manufacturers, and that's really how we got in touch with Rakani, how we got in touch with our Japanese fabric manufacturers as well. So it was a huge. It really opened the doors, and you can definitely see a big difference between phase one and phase two, and that was because we went to we kind of explored different fabric manufacturers during that time.
See, here's the thing. Um, this is why you are at the point you are at, and I have found this conversation so valuable. Is you ask anybody, even me, hey, if you're going to Paris, everybody wants to go to Paris Fashion Week as a designer. Nobody's really gonna say I want to go to a fabric fair, you know. And this is what truly makes you different.
Yeah, for me, it's really an obsession. I
Yeah.
I get very obsessive with with fabrics and trying to figure out as much information as possible that I can gain from it. How can I kind of achieve the highest quality? What determines the price between a Fear of God mainline and a Fear of God essentials? Um, and how can I achieve something that will last a very long time, but also feel luxurious? And so that's probably why I'm very obsessive, and I guess really would prefer going to the fabrics fair over the runway or the Paris Fashion Week.
See, the thing is, an average Joe, or like even me, I'd say it all comes down to your marketing, but it is
Yeah.
really marketing.
Well, I 100% think it's
Because,
marketing. I think you're definitely right. Um, Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I 100% think marketing is a huge part of the business. I just found that out late. I was just a products guy for so long. I'm only just starting to delve into marketing. And I'll probably have to get some tips from you as well, because I'm literally a sponge trying to soak up as much information as possible. But sorry to cut you off. Cut you
yeah,
off.
I mean, I would have, I wouldn't say it's weird. This is a bit of a full circle. Like I'm not trying to be cliche here or anything, someone who has been looking at your work since what 4 or 5 years now, and someone who's saying, and you're the person who's saying, hey, like I can learn something from you in terms of marketing. It's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Um, yeah,
It's
I
the
mean,
truth.
100%. Like our this conversation doesn't have to be the end of it. We can obviously speak
Mhm.
anytime, and um, I'm sure I can provide you some tips and some valuable insights in terms of marketing.
Mm.
Um, and but do you have any? Do you know any brand? It doesn't even have to be a clothing brand that you're like, hey, I fuck with this marketing, or I
Yeah.
fuck with their marketing.
I'm sure you probably already know who I'm going to say, but
ALD.
yeah. Oh well, I was thinking on the lines of Apple. Apple's marketing is ridiculous.
Okay, 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 okay.
Um,
Yeah.
Nike's marketing is ridiculous. Um, ALD's got really good marketing. Don't get me wrong; their marketing is phenomenal, especially with their videos. Insane. Um, From a brand perspective, I think ALD probably is one of the top tier marketers. Um, I really like Fear of God's way of marketing as well. It's a really calming kind of uh, way of capturing you and really drawing you in. Uh, who else would I say? I think Root has a pretty decent marketing way of grabbing their audience as well. But from a universally like standpoint, I'd probably say Apple and Nike are just, and I feel as if they've gotten to this point where they're really, at the top of the mountain, and they don't really even need marketing, but their marketing is just so seamless, and um, it makes you want to buy their product every time. Like, I mean, it's so
And
you subconsciously purchase their products as well. But yeah, sorry.
yeah, no, 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 don't apologize. So you cut out, but I think you were talking about Apple, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I figured. I mean, it all comes down to two words, man, and they have turned that entire, not two words, think different, into $1 trillion business. I myself, I have an iPhone, MacBook, AirPods, fucking you name what, everything Apple.
It's a lifestyle.
Um, it really is, and like I feel like this is something you probably know, but we can kind of talk about. I don't know. I think I was on LinkedIn or whatever. I don't know.
Mm.
I think it was LinkedIn. But anyways, I saw this post of you go to a cafe and you see two people, exact same people. One has a MacBook. At first glance, first impression, you're like, oh, they're probably working on a movie. You know, they're creative. You look at somebody who has a Dell laptop, you're like, oh, probably Excel spreadsheets,
I can agree with
it,
that.
right? I mean,
Well, that's yeah, like
it really that's how you make a brand.
mm, yeah, no, I 100% agree.
See, maybe maybe this is something you can guide me on, but I'm trying to
Mhm.
get to a point where I don't want to do any branding, but I want to make the imperfectionism in my products be the logo itself. Kind of like how you want to make the fitting and the quality. So my brand is called Nothing Makes Sense. And what I want to do is I want to make upside down chest pockets. I want to have upside down kangaroo pockets. I want to have like an uneven neckline, you know, upside down uh, side pockets or whatever it is. I'm just I guess thinking about pockets right now. I got a whole bunch of ideas besides pockets,
Mm,
but that's 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 my goal to not have that logo, but make my work speak for it. Kind of like how when you
that's
look at
pretty
somebody
sick.
who thank you, I appreciate it.
That's a very interesting concept, actually.
Yeah, do you know any other brand
Do I know any
that
other
has
brand
done
that
something
does
like
that?
that? Yeah,
No. I think the closest thing I probably can think of, no, I wouldn't be able to be honest. There's nobody that I know that intentionally tries to be, I guess, imperfect or make those kind of,
John. Yeah, no, I'd agree. John Elliott and
hmm
Spencer Badu, they play for with imperfections,
Oh,
and
I've heard of those
kind of,
brands. I didn't know that
yeah.
that was their ethos.
I don't think that's their ethos. No,
Oh, okay.
or maybe it is. I'm trying to speak with Spencer Badu on this,
Mm, mhm.
but I think it's the next big thing that I might be able to do. But bro, like here's the thing. This is why I'm so against imperfectionism, because that's the concept I want to put out in the world. Where fuck perfectionism. Just
Mm,
get started, and then you'll see that process, the progress, and that progress itself will be perfect.
I can agree with that.
Um, but obviously, speaking with you, someone who is a perfectionist, um, I definitely see your point of view for sure. Just the dopamine that you get after thinking about something and actually making it happen. I guess no
Mm.
amount of money, no amount of praise can beat that. So,
Sorry, just one thing
um,
with the imperfect kind of silhouette or the
ethos.
those details with the ethos. Do you think that you would want to make it perfectly unperfect? And if so, do you think you'd find it very difficult? Kind of like, would that hit your OCD or whatever, and kind of make things like? Do you think there will be a perfect imperfect, or would you kind of all right? That's it. I've given it a shot and it's imperfect, therefore let's push through.
That's probably one of the best things anyone has ever asked me. I'm not gonna lie. I'd say, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I think I'll be lying if I said I'm trying to not make it imperfectly perfect. But I think by just starting and making things imperfect, I'll be able to fuel imperfectionism in the world, and I'll be able to fuel
Mm,
myself. And
for
eventually, I'll
sure.
be able to get past the idea of perfectionism. If that answers your question.
For sure. No, I definitely agree with that. I mean, at the end of the day, our trying to be perfect is what holds me back quite a lot. And I've noticed that, look, at the end of the day, just get up and do it, make a mistake and kind of learn from them. At the end of the day, that's the only way you're going to become better. Sitting down and kind of dwelling on it consistently is giving you a day, you know, to fall back and kind of miss your stop you from essentially completing that project or chasing that dream. And so um, I 100% agree with just going out there and giving it a shot. And if it's imperfect, it is what it is. Like you eventually kind of get to that place where it will be perfect or imperfectly perfect.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hope I'm not offending you or taking anything away from your work.
Go ahead.
Because what you have done so far, I think it's immaculate. So, I'm not trying to put you down and making you think, oh, like, you know, you've not been able to grow fast or whatever because you're perfect. I'm not trying to say that at all.
That's fine. I mean, look, I'm a very kind of call it how I see it kind of thing. I genuinely believe it's a big reason why I've kind of held myself back because I'm so, afraid of failure quite a lot. And it's what's really held me back quite a bit. And so by not putting yourself out there, you essentially, you stop yourself from making those achievements. And it's something that I've kind of started to learn throughout the last 6 months.
What are some of the things you're doing consciously to not fall back in that world of perfectionism, I guess?
Putting deadlines on myself, to-do lists, um, are a big one because I mean, one thing that you probably, and one thing I didn't really do before I'd go to sleep is I'd kind of go to sleep. But if you take a second and reflect on what it was that you've been able to kind of achieve throughout the day, if you did complete the task that you set yourself, then you can kind of sleep easily. If not, then that's your punishment.
Okay, you said you have a good eye for quality, garments, sneakers. No, you said you have a good eye for quality, whether it be garments, sneakers, film, music, food, or anything subjective, right? A lot of people want to say something like that and want to be in that like same mindset, right? So if you were not born with it, how do you develop that eye?
That's a good question. I don't know how you. I genuinely don't know how to answer that. For me, it's kind
Were you
of.
born with it?
I mean, me saying that is just my opinion. I can't. There's no way of really kind of. Um, there's no way of me measuring that or me kind of like anybody measuring that. So I have this idea that you know, if somebody was going to ask me, um, I get this quite a lot. They'll ask for my suggestion in regards to this particular area, and I'll give that opinion. For films, it's kind of gotten to a point where I'll genuinely refrain from watching something if I feel as if it will be a waste of time because it's not great. Um, unless it's got some, a favorite character of mine, a favorite actor, or it's got something that I kind of I'm interested in. But I will not watch a movie that I've never heard of before. I haven't looked at the trailer and thought it was interesting. Um, if I don't, number one, yeah, look at reviews, or if it doesn't get an 8 out of 10 on IMDb, and I wouldn't suggest a good movie unless I didn't think it was absolutely amazing. So I'm fairly, I critique films quite often. TV shows, films, shoes. I have a strong opinion on certain things, and I refrain from saying anything unless it's somebody that I'm quite close to, because then I'll tell you raw how I feel, or unless you ask for that opinion, um, because yeah, I'll be relatively blunt.
I think I might find myself speaking to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I might find myself speaking to you about. I think, like, here's the thing. The reason why I even asked that question is your work shows for it. Yes, it's an opinion, but look at what you have done with Solace, you know? And that's not taking anything away from your business partners.
No, fair enough. I mean, I feel like it could be a lot better, to be honest. Like, I'll constantly look at things and just think to myself, man, like why bother, and like you have these kind of thoughts and so on and so forth. And um, I do, you know, consistently doubt myself on a you know, pretty much every day. But yeah, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
I mean, you did say you said mental health is something you like to take as seriously as possible, right? And then the idea of
Mm,
perfectionism, it kind of, at least to me, it, for lack of a better term, it kind of fucks me up in ways. Like I
mm,
find myself, like I said, just it just hinders my ability to do shit, right? I'm
mm.
not able to do stuff. So how do you prioritize your mental health, and how does that correlate with your relationship of perfectionism?
Man, that's a good question. I always kind of look at like life, or at least my mental health, as how can I kind of improve my quality of life. Um, so whenever I'm, anxious, or I feel like crap, or I'm just not having it, I'm mad, whatever the case might be, I'll kind of take a second and think about trying to understand what's bringing me you know, this feeling. And it typically has a long line, like you can draw it back to, you know, months, or a decision made, from choosing, for example, for choosing this, like starting this
Yeah,
brand.
for sure.
Um, and my response to it is kind of like, well, how can the particular situation that's making me feel the way I do, is it within my control? Um, if it is within my control, then why can't I change it? And a lot of the times, when it isn't within my control, it's typically a pride thing. Um, my pride is in the way of my quality of life, um, and sometimes it's a case of just being honest with yourself, and if it's to do with somebody else, then conversing with them, and I guess speaking with no form of pride, or with little pride at least, and understand that's essentially what's going to, like, what's going to hold you back from being happy. And same case of when you're mad at somebody, or putting certain expectations on people, such as your friends and whatnot. Understanding that you holding a grudge or you being mad at somebody is affecting your quality of life, because now you could be in a good mood, but because you've seen that person, you're um, you're now going to feel like crap because you feel like you need to have some sort of um, some front on, or and that's going to ultimately affect your quality of life. And so forgiving is a big part of that. It doesn't mean that you should forget if somebody's done something wrong to you or whatever the case might be, but understanding that you can still live it harmoniously with them without 100% agreeing um, on everything that you guys kind of come across. And then when it comes to work, it's another thing. Like, I mean, I work 9 to 5, but it's not necessarily my passion. Um, Looking at it, like changing your perspective of it can really do a lot of things. For example, you might wake up and think to yourself, "Man, I have to go do this job." I'm not gonna lie, with the job I'm in currently right now, it's actually pretty decent. I actually like don't have anything
I love it.
bad to say about it. It it's not a bad job. It's actually pretty decent. Um, but previously, in jobs that I didn't really enjoy that much, I'd have to convince myself, instead of telling myself that, oh man, I got to go to work. You can flip and think to yourself as, hey, look, I get to go to work in order to fuel my dreams, which is the ultimate goal at the end of the day. And so there's certain things like that where you can kind of flip the perspective, can do a lot to your mental health, or at least it works for me. I'm not saying that it worked universally, but I try to look at the positive in everything I do, and uh, it at least works when it's a choice that I've made. Now, if somebody's made a choice for me, it can be a bit difficult, but yeah, that's kind of how I look at mental health.
See, right off the bat, I just want to say that's gonna be, yeah, that's gonna be the episode highlight right there. You're the person that's listening; they're gonna listen to it as the first thing. What you just said, I can simply, I mean, I don't know. Like, this is gonna sound cliche, but I am truly speechless. The way you said, you spoke about pride and your self awareness that comes with it. Then you talked about there's so many people, especially creatives, who have to work in order to fuel your dreams. And a lot of them, including me, don't like what we do.
Mm.
But the idea of how where you said that, you fuel your dreams with that work, that
Mm,
really spoke to me. I just want to say that.
for sure. Another thing that I did want to add as well, actually, is I do my best to not take things personally as well. Whether it be with my family, friends, strangers, whoever it might be. Um, your initial instinct is, if somebody says they don't like you know your opinion, or they don't like your thoughts, your brand, your clothes, your styling, your they don't think that you have certain qualities, whatever it might be. I definitely do my best to ensure that I try to see it from their perspective before I respond, or especially when it's a serious conversation. Um, when you're having like conflicting ideas, take a second and think about where they're kind of coming from and whether what they're saying is actually true, because 9 out of 10 times they probably are telling the truth, and you just kind of um, not self-aware, because when you mentioned the word self-aware, that's the first thing that I kind of thought about, um, because nobody's going to say that just to, I guess, try to make you feel like a crap person. I mean, maybe there are people who might do that, but
Yeah.
most of the time it's really to shed some light on something that you probably don't know, and sometimes you do need a reality check. Um, and it's why I try to get as much feedback as I can from anybody, because I don't want to live in a bubble where I have these thoughts of who I think I am, whereas everybody else thinks something completely different. And ultimately, it will stop me from, from fixing those, or at least, being aware of those certain shortfalls or whatever the case might be. Being aware of, you know, maybe sometimes I might be a bit too optimistic, and I fly too high. And that's a good thing about, um, Matt as a business partner, because he would kind of bring me down and be like, yo, you're spending way too much money on this. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then take a step back and realize that. But yeah, I just thought I'd
I
say
mean,
that.
hey,
Sorry to keep cutting you off.
no, 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 bro. You're not cutting me off, first of all. And second of all, the conversation is a little delayed. I feel like it wouldn't be the case if I was in Canada, but I guess I still think, well, we're having a great conversation. And the
Mm.
last thing I kind of want to talk to you about is you said you're fueled by competition. So, do you find yourself subconsciously competing with other brands or striving to be the best within your solace or within striving to be best within your brand?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think to begin
Thank
with,
you.
I was. No problem. I think
Okay.
to begin with, I'd be looking at all these different brands and think, and I think it was just the worst that was coming out of me. I'd think, oh man, like, their quality's not great. How are they, doing well, or whatever the case might be. And it was just such, like, negative thoughts that would essentially just not get you far. And I think from the last year or so, I've kind of, tried to redevelop myself and understand that at the end of the day, the people that I'm looking at aren't my competition. Um, because they're not selling the same products as we are. It's for a completely different audience, um, and what they're doing is working very well for them because they know that that's what their audience wants, and my audience is very different, and so I shouldn't try and compare, um, marketing strategies or even sales strategies. Um, it's just it's not doing it's doing a disservice to myself. And so I've been pretty much just competing against, lately at least, to myself, to keep that, to look at last year's results and see how I can improve on that. I think it'd be great. um, and I think there are maybe a couple of brands out there in Australia that are similar that I can kind of use as a benchmark. um, but I wouldn't say that there's anybody that I'm looking at right now. I'm kind of looking to eventually reach a point where I shouldn't be comparing well, I mean, you should always be comparing yourself to yourself, but I'd love to see some healthy competition with somebody who shares a very similar ethos as myself, because they would essentially be demonstrating that, and it'd be better if they were more successful because they would be demonstrating that we could eventually be at that level because their ethos is similar to our ethos, and so there's definitely a market out there. It's just trying to figure out a way to really, I guess, put ourselves out there and achieve a level of quality second to none, really. Um, but
Yeah,
individually, I'm a very competitive person, and me and my
yep,
wife are very
yep.
competitive, actually. So
That's beautiful.
we can't compete against each other in anything. Unfortunately, it
Right.
doesn't help anybody.
No,
uh,
100%. Yeah. Like even with my girlfriend, um that's why
mm,
like here's one you spoke about how um you were speaking about how to not let other people kind of don't hold grudge, right? And I think it's pretty
mm,
common to hold grudges with your roommate or the people that you see consistently, the people at work, and it kind of puts a toll on your mental health. So I live by two rules: my roommate and my girlfriend. They're always right.
rightio. How did you come to
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
conclusion?
But uh bro, it's honestly what you said. I don't I don't want to wake up in my apartment and that's my peace. That's my home. And go in the
Mm,
kitchen and have that energy in the kitchen with my roommate. It's a place of love. It's a place of like lifting each other up. And with my girlfriend, I just think I got lucky. Like she doesn't fight,
mm,
so we don't even have to come to a point where I'm right or wrong. So,
yeah.
but yeah, no, I mean, knock on wood, I guess.
Mm,
You, this is the longest conversation I've had, and honestly speaking, I can keep going, but we'll kind
mm,
of end it here.
for sure.
I'm sure this is not our last time speaking as well.
Yeah,
So, and
100%.
correct me if I'm
Man,
wrong. It's
it's 10 o'clock over there, right?
Musa, right? Yeah,
No, no,
it's
it's Musia.
10:16. Musia.
Oh,
Pardon
wow.
me.
Musia. No, you're right. Nobody gets on the
Yeah.
first shot.
Um, but yeah, I mean, Musia, if other creatives want to get in touch with you and start a conversation, what are the easiest ways?
I guess same way that you reached out through probably through Instagram messaging Solace, or feel free to email me, info@solaceclo.com. I'm typically responsive, I'd like to say, but you can be the judge of that, really. um, and yeah, I'm always open to conversations.
And anything you want to let the creatives know that who are listening, and then we can kind of end it there.
Um,
Your last words, I guess.
Not that I know of. I did really did want to say thank you for putting me on your podcast. I really appreciated it. Really appreciate you reaching out as well. Um, I've really enjoyed this. We've been going on for what, an hour and a half now. It, it's
Yeah,
been great.
more actually.
You've kind of helped me, self-reflect quite a lot, in the questions that you sent out, as well as having this conversation with you. Um, I really, really do appreciate it, and I'd love to hear your aspirations of this podcast, as well as your brand as well. And I do want to converse on a consistent basis as well. So thank you very much.
100%. I mean, yo, I was gonna end it with thanking you, but see, this is how your parents have raised you. You know, you're just so respectful. But yeah, in terms of my aspirations, really, with with the brand, I'm on this. I'm sort of making this a slogan for my life that just embracing perfectionism. So I want to put as many drops as I can with the brand.
Hmm.
From the last couple of years, I was not able to find a factory. I was also being lazy. I didn't know where to go, especially like, struggling with someone. I just graduated, so I definitely don't
Mm,
have money at all to start a business again. So, yeah, I think with the brand, it's just putting those consistent drops because that's going to go towards, like, with those consistent drops, I'll be able to do more short form content, long form content, and this and that.
mm,
And with the podcast, bro, it all comes down. Podcast is honestly something something for me. The amount of valuable insights I gain from this conversation is all that I want. And to have a
mm,
platform where I can put out and people will listen to is just that's it. Podcast is something I want to do for the next 40 to 60 years.
mm. That's
Yeah.
it. I'm excited. I need to. Have you released any other podcasts? Because I actually haven't had the chance to have a look, and I'd be keen to give it a listen.
Yeah, man, for sure. I recorded with uh, Drew Joyner,
Oh, okay, the YouTuber.
the YouTuber. Yeah.
Oh,
I also
sick.
recorded with, like, yeah, quite a few friends from Montreal as well. I will definitely send you a link.
Hmm, for sure.
And yeah, like, please give me honest opinions. I'm trying to, in my head, like, with my headspace right now, I'm trying to not find ways because we catch ourselves, like, always asking for critique
Hmm.
before we even put the reps in. So I want to do like 100 episodes, 100 conversations, and then
Yeah,
look back and see like how I can improve and look further into how to improve.
for sure. For sure. No, I agree. Definitely
Yeah.
get those 100 in. By then you'll probably be perfect, but well, you at least be amazing at it. Because you will learn. You always learn from your
No, I
mistakes as you go on. So it's a good mindset to have.
exactly. That's what's yeah, you make mistakes and then I guess you learn from this mindset really. But but yeah, we can I'm gonna end the recording. I just